Okay, last day of Rambam Bekius, nekimah and netirah. So, oh, there's Isaac. Yay. Okay. All right. Hey, Isaac.
Hey.
All right. So we read the Sefer mitzvos last time, but they're short enough that we should just read it again, I think. Okay. So, and I'll just read it in English. So Shin Daled is where is nekimah. So this is the prohibition that we've been prohibited to take revenge from each other. For example, if someone did an action to us in the past, and then this is the important part, and then we do not cease from seeking out that person until we repay him in accordance with his evil act or cause him to suffer as we suffered. Okay, that's the main essence of revenge. So Hashem prohibits us or warns us against this and says, don't take revenge. Sifra says, until when or until what is the power of revenge? It's if he says, lend me your scythe, and he doesn't lend it, and the next day he says he says to the first guy, lend me your axe, and he says, I'm not going to lend it to you the same way that you didn't lend me your scythe. Therefore it says, don't take revenge. Okay, and by that mashal you should expand it to all of the other cases. So that was the big question we said, is it's very hard to just give one case and then say, okay, just extrapolate, because what do you extrapolate from? And that was what we said in the footnote here, is the one that says the Gemara in Yuma, footnote 78, the Gemara in Yuma implies Sham mashmash in nekimah netirah ala b'mamon. Okay, so only in monetary like matters, so like lending stuff. Okay, aval b'tzara degufa lo l'koshkein b'tzara devarim. Right. So if you punch me and then I punch you, that's not nekimah according to the Gemara there. And if you insult me and I insult you, that's also not nekimah according to the Gemara. Midah of nekimah maybe, but not the isser. Right. So I cited that just because, first of all, if that's true, it's weird that the Rambam doesn't mention that in the actual Sefer mitzvos or in the actual halachos, I think. And then, but he leaves the door open and says like, oh, just extrapolate. So are we supposed to extrapolate that this involves mammon? You know, like you can't just tell someone to extrapolate. Like,
right, it's true.
How do you know?
You're extrapolating is always taking one of the qualities.
Right. Right, like I said last time, like so you're only over the losas if it involves a scythe and an axe, you know, like yeah. And then netirah is a similar thing. He says, so this is in Shin Vav, no, so Shin Hey. We have been prohibited from bearing a grudge, even though we don't take revenge. Namely, that we I don't know how you hold in the hate that was done to us, and that the chote did to us, and we remind him of it. Okay, that's the essence there. So Hashem therefore says, do not take revenge and don't bear a grudge. And then the Sefer says, to what extent is the power of netirah? So it's if the guy says, lend me your scythe, and he does not lend it. And the next day, that guy says to him, lend me your axe. And the first guy says, here you go. I'm not like you who didn't lend me your scythe. That's why it says lo sitor. Yeah. Okay, so those are our cases. Okay, now before we do the halachos, there is okay, so for people who listened to Mishlei this morning, we're going to repeat something. Okay, there's a hidden Rambam on nekimah. Okay, it's in the Isser of lo sakalo cheresh. Okay, and this is where he gives the psychology of revenge. Okay, it's a good one to know about, and I feel like we should do it because the Rambam is assuming we've read the Sefer mitzvos, you know, in its entirety. Okay, so and we're not even going to do the whole thing. We're just going to do the first part. Okay, so this is in Shin Yud Zayin. Okay, in Sefer mitzvos lo sase. Okay, Shin Yud Zayin. Mitzvah hashva ve'esrei u'shlosh meos. Hasharshu is harnu shelo lakalel shum adam Yisrael. So we're prohibited to curse any Jew. Who amru lo sakala cherish, but the pasuk says don't curse a deaf person. Okay, interestingly, this is not in Hilchos Deios. Okay, this is in Hilchos Sanhedrin, I believe. I think right. You would expect it to be in Deios, right?
Right. That's weird.
Yeah, it's strange. Yeah. Okay, I believe it's in Sanhedrin. Okay. Shmami meni inyan amru cherish mahu. So hear from me the explanation. What is this cherish? Okay, like why does it say cherish? Because it's not only us to curse a cherish. V'hu, namely, kasher hanefesh misor eres lihinakim min hamazik kafit suras hanezek hanirshemes b'dimayon. Okay, so this is Aristotelian soul parts here. When the soul is aroused or stimulated to take revenge from the damager in accordance with the image of the harm. Oh, sorry, Isaac, not the image of the harm, the form of the harm that is impressed upon the imagination. Okay, so I'll explain in a second. Lo sechtal mihis orarusa, that stimulation to action will not cease ad asher tanish as hamazik kafit suras hanezek shenikva b'dimayon, until he has punished the damager in accordance with the form of the harm that was established in the imagination. Okay, one more line and then we'll summarize. The kasher tanishehu, and then once he punishes him, tashech osaha hisoros, so that arousal will dissipate. I think dissipate is the best word for tashech. Like Hamas Melech Shachaka, like by Achashverosh. The tedar osahatsura, and that form will vanish min hadimayon, from the imagination, right? Yeah. So this is very stoicism, okay, right? Which is that you don't actually suffer from the thing that is done to you. You suffer from the impression of the thing that's done to you. So that's exactly the term nirshemes b'dimayon. That's exactly what he's saying. Is that someone, let's say, so someone, let's use insult, because I think that would be the easiest one. Someone insults you. So there's the person's verbalization, but that doesn't actually do anything, because there are people who get insulted and they don't feel anything, or they rejoice, or whatever, as the Rambam is going to say later on, if we have time to do that one. But what happens is you get an impression of harm that is a tsuras hanezek that is in your imagination, and that has a quantity to it. Okay, and you are then, that arouses your soul to inflict upon the other person either the damage or the suffering until you've like filled that meter. Okay, and then once you fill the meter, your own tsuras hanezek will dissipate, and the hisorus hanefesh will stop.
Weird.
Yeah, right. It's a very, very like.
It's true though.
It is true, and it's just I always love it when I hear Rishonim talking in such explicit psychodynamic terms. Like they don't usually talk about the inner mechanisms of these things. Okay, so
I didn't quite get what the meter was.
The meter is I'm using meter because he does seem to say quantity. Asher ad lo sechtal his orarusa ad asher tanish as hamazik kafid suras hanezek shenikma b'diayon.
Quantity of what?
What?
Quantity of what?
Of nezek, or perceived nezek. So you have to keep. So for example, actually he's going to elaborate. Okay, he's going to elaborate. He's going to go through a hierarchy of vengeance in a second. Were you going to ask something?
That sounds like that's cool.
Wait.
Yeah.
So he's saying like you like get more and more upset until you eventually boil over. Is that?
No. There's a.
I might have not followed what
We'll see his. We'll see what he says. Yeah. What is that?
It does seem like it could be read as qualitative. Like I don't see quantity necessarily.
Okay, so maybe you'll judge whether I'm reading into that from these examples. We have I think 4 or 5 stages in the hierarchy. Okay, yesh shetani shehu b'klala v'chiruf bilvad v'tashech. So there's some people who will punish through cursing and insulting alone, and then that will dissipate their hisorus nefesh. Biyada as erech hanezek sheagia lamazik be'osam hadvarim. Once they know the worth of, and I think erech, worth or value of harm, that or degree of harm that will reach the mazik be'osam hadvarim from those words uboshto behem, and his embarrassment. Okay, so that's going to actually be level 2. Okay, he states level 1. He leaves level 1 for last, so I think it's level 2. Okay, level 3. Yesh sheyeh hadavar gadol yoser. There are some things that are greater. V'lo tashech osa hayisorus ad sheyovad kol ruchusho v'az tashech. And the arousal will not cease until he's destroyed all the guy's property. Okay, and then it'll cease. It'll dissipate. Biyada as erech hatzar shegilo ba'avdan rechusha. Once he knows the magnitude of suffering that the guy had experienced from the loss of his property. V'yesh shehid hadavar chamor yoser. Level 4. There's certain things that are more severe. Below tashech osa hahisorus ad shetani shehu begufo b'mini hamakos v'chisor haivarim. The arousal will not cease until he's punished the guy in his body with types of blows and diminution of limbs. Okay, taking off the limbs. Level 5 is even worse. Another great line. That his the vengeance will not cease, or the arousal will not cease until he takes the soul of the damager and annihilates him from existence. Okay. All right, so that's the Zohi Hatachlis. That's the ultimate extent. Okay, so those are levels 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, basic thing, revenge is when someone does something to you and you form an impression of the harm that they did, and that's in your imagination, and that motivates you to go and punish them until you've reached a certain degree, and then the imagination goes away and then you stop seeking revenge. Okay. Okay, now he goes back to level 1, and that's where it ties it back to Los Kalacheresh. And this is in the prohibition of cursing your fellow Jew. And he's explaining why the Torah formulates it as don't curse a deaf person.
Right. Remembering a thing from Marcus Aurelius, which I might mess up, but that he said that like don't meet the apparent evil in someone else with true evil from you.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Like, if this like you perceive something
Yeah.
evil being done to you, and then like you act in a way that you know is evil.
Yeah.
So you're for sure doing evil, and it's on the basis of like what feels evil to you.
That's really good. Although the funny thing is, if you're doing it to another Stoic, then he'll just realize it's not true evil either, and then you'll all be good. Yeah, no, but that's a good Marcus Aurelius stuff. Okay, so now he says like this: no, you're not. Yeah. V'yeshiti his orus hanefesh mu'etes babakashas onish hamazik machmas kalos cheta. Okay, so then there's a level. Well, I'm calling this level 1, where the arousal of the soul is too small to demand an actual punishment to the guy who harmed you because of the kalos cheta, because of the lightness. I don't know how to translate the kalos of the sin. Okay, ad shetashach b'tzaka uvakas alav uklalaso to the point where you can get rid of this desire to take revenge just by what do you say? Yelling, being angry, and cursing. Okay. Even though the guy doesn't even hear you. Okay. So you're just like,
how's that going to stop him from taking revenge?
Oh no. In other words, so if someone hurts me, so I could engage in all of those like levels of actual vengeance where I actually punish him, or I could just stomp around in my room and yell, and then that gets it out of my system. Okay, or I curse the guy. What was it? Yeah, right. Or I curse him out to someone else, and like he doesn't even know about it.
But you have to direct the energy somewhere.
Right. Yeah. Well, he's not saying you have to. He's saying that this is what happens.
Right.
Torah's going to try to prevent you from doing it. Right. Okay. So then he says like this. Okay. Okay. This is very well known from hot-tempered people. See, have I sold you on the degree thing, right, Isaac? Okay. All right. So their soul will, or really the arousal of the soul will dissipate in this sheer in very light offenses. Even though the sinner doesn't even know about their anger, didn't hear their cursing. Okay, now this is the beautiful part. I mean, that was beautiful too. You might have a havamina. You might think that the Torah only prohibits us to engage in cursing a fellow Jew because of the harm that is and shame that's going to be, the suffering and shame that's going to be felt by the guy who you're cursing. Okay. But this deaf guy who doesn't even hear it is not going to be afflicted by it. Okay. And I feel like people quote this Rashi a lot, but with the whole Rambam's background, it's awesome. Yeah. Lefika hishmianu shehu asur v'hizarlav. Therefore, the Torah taught us that it's asur and prohibited about it. Lefi she'ein haTorah mabita al matzav hamischaref bilvad, because the Torah doesn't only care about the situation of the guy who is insulted. Ella hibita gam al matzav hamecharef. The Torah also cares about the situation of the guy who is insulting, right? About his perfection. Shehu husar shelo ye'orer es nafsho lenakama. It is warning him to not arouse his soul to vengeance, v'lo yargilena lichos, and to not accustom himself to get angry. Okay, so that's why the Torah says don't curse a deaf person. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, when I first encountered this, I don't know how I encountered it, and I was looking. I assumed that he wrote about this in Lo Sikom V'Lo Sitor, in Taking Revenge, and I tried to find it, and I could not find where this one was. And that's why I'm calling it a hidden one, because it's really about nekimah, like this is where he lays out the philosophy of nekimah, but it's just not in the Sefer Mitzvos on nekimah. So it's a good one though. Yeah. Okay. Oh, and it turns out, by the way, so then Los Kal Cheresh, in a way, is a what do you call it? It's almost like a geder to nekimah, right? Because the way the Rambam's setting it is like there are like these five, I mean, it's not Davka 5, these 5 levels of taking revenge. And the most minimal one is where you're not actually interacting with the guy who wronged you. You're just like letting it out. But he said at the end that the reason why the Torah prohibited this is so that you don't, so it's a getter against nekimah and anger. Yeah.
We should recap the 5 levels really quick.
Yeah. So level 1 is where you just curse the guy out in your room. Okay. Level 2 is where you insult him to his face to cause him suffering. Level 3 is where you harm his property. Level 4 is when you harm him bodily, and level 5 is when you kill him.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why doesn't that fall into harming his body?
It does, but it's in terms of like how much you would need to do in order to feel like you've taken your revenge. Yeah. And in some cases, I mean, then there's the 6th level, which we mentioned this morning, which is like wiping out his whole village. But that only occurs in like, yes, exactly. Yeah. The Chang family. Let's not mix the yeah. But what was I gonna say? One more thing. Oh yeah, the other thing we see from here, by the way, is the way that vengeance works is it's an alternative. It masquerades as justice. I mean, I don't think this is a chiddush, but it masquerades as justice. But instead of being in terms of like mishpat, it's in terms of imagination and perceived harm. Is that you got the person did something to you, and then the harm registers in your imagination, and you have to keep like pursuing him until you get rid of that imagined harm by somehow harming him,
As opposed to what would mishpat be?
Mishpat has to do more with either actual restitution, like let's say you steal from me and you steal from me and then I bring you to mishpat and then you pay back, right? Or it has to do with like restoring order in society, or it has to do with educational stuff like death penalty is I mean, it's for the guys kapara also, but it's also for the people to like a deterrent for people from doing this in the future. It's rooted in the objective, not in the subjective, is how I would put it, with Mortimer Adler's definitions from 10 Philosophical Mistakes.
Yeah.
Right. Existing for you, for me, and for everyone else is objective, meaning it's in reality, not just in my own mind. Yeah.
Right. And why is he splitting them up into these like levels? If it is quantitative.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I guess those are objectively different realms of nezek you can cause. It seems like he's putting it in terms of because he puts it in terms of onesh, right? That you're aroused to punish the guy. And I think that's also the link of like, really who should do the punishing? Beis Din. Like take the guy to Beis Din, they should do the punishing. It's Hilchos Sanhedrin ha'onchinam surin lahem, not lahen and lacha, and let them do the punishing. And but these are different levels of onesh with different degrees of harm.
So where's the starting point? Like, are these psychological distinctions that we make, and then halacha codifies them as like distinct function, or is it like ideally these are different oceans, and then like that's why he's like.
I don't know, because it's not like these don't register halachically in any way, other than like if you do take the guy to court.
No, I mean like in terms of there being a difference between these different.
Right, I'm saying like even in Hilchos, Losachal Cheresh and in Hilchos Nekimah, I don't think these exist as halacha categories.
No, yeah, I'm saying like just the fact that like Misa, like you get one punishment or like full bell.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, meaning is he just using these categories because those are categories that pre-exist in halacha, or are they psychological realities?
And then like halacha is responding to those.
Right, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Right. That could be also. Yeah. Interesting question. Okay, so now should we go to actual halachos, which are few? Okay, so you have a packet. Oh no, you don't have a packet. Now you're past it. Okay. Okay, so we are now on the last page. No, not last page. We're on halacha Zion. Zion 1. Okay. Hanokim es chavero, one who takes vengeance from his fellow, over below sase, violates a lo sase. Shnemar, as it says, lo sikom, don't take revenge. The alpha pisheno loke. Okay, this is gonna be a weird sentence. Even though you don't get malchus, which is very weird.
There's no mindset though.
Well, there could be, right? I mean, I guess there would have to be for all of them, right? Because if I say I'm not lending you the thing, then you're right. Yeah. Okay, that's true. Okay. So it's not weird.
Wait, why is it not weird?
Because there's no Maisa involved, and you can only give malchus on action that there's a Maisa.
Wait, what were you thinking?
Well, like if you stab me and I stab you, then there's a Maisa there. But I guess because categorically, like I don't think we make those differentiations and say that if my particular avera involves a Maisa, then we get malchus.
Don't you make that when I'm buying chametz
Coming to matzah.
matzah?
Oh, like Bikdesh Dias and Maisa, or
Like if you had, like, you have
Right. but if you were machmit something, yeah, yeah. I mean, I would say yes, we do that, but that's also a really complicated structure, right? Of the of how the Torah makes you buy over by right, but mindset, right? Yeah, I'm not touching that one. Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
So you're saying that it could be an expression of nekimah if you don't say anything, but you just like stabbing.
Yeah. So that would definitely halachically qualify as nekimah, but I guess because you can't have everything dependent on because you can't. In other words, in order to get malchus, you need the form of the isser to be one that involves a maisa. And since there are ways to violate this without a maisa, then it doesn't work.
That also, according to the footnote in Masech Siyama, would be
Right. That wouldn't be mammon. Right. So let's say the guy wrecks my car, so I wreck his car.
there you go.
Right. There you go. Yeah.
Right. Well, the Hafobel doesn't.
I mean, it's not fine.
Say again.
There is whatever. There's mammon payments in Hafobel.
Right, but you Adam's objection was that if the whole isser is only about divrei mammon, then my stabbing example wouldn't apply,
Yeah.
and so like this would apply. Yeah. What were you saying, Chaim?
I don't know.
Okay, so anyway, even though you don't get malchus, dea ra'ahi ad ma'od. It's a very bad dea. Okay, I mean we can agree with that, but it's just I don't know. Didn't we? I mean, the overarching question which we have to answer also is what is the unity in Perek Shvi'i? Okay, because just to do a quick recap, Perek Aleph of Deios was the halachos b'drachav. Perek Sheni was curing sicknesses of the soul and the difficulties involved, and he went through a lot of bad Deios there also, right?
Yeah.
You know, Perek Shlishi was all your actions should be geared towards knowledge of God. Perek Revi was the health one. Perek Chamishi was the conduct of Talmid Chachamim. Perek Shishi was the societal bein adam l'chavero mitzvos, and then Shvi is rechilus, like let's say like racha, and then nekimah and netirah.
Right.
And if you're going to say, well, I mean, it's the los ases, but we also had lo sisna salchicha bilvavecha in the previous one, and not afflicting orphans and widows and converts, you know.
Yeah.
So like it's a weird division, yeah.
Maybe it's Lav and B'maisa, both of them, and not with the other two.
Okay.
The other ones.
Okay. I mean, I can get on board with that. It is interesting though. It's yeah.
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 Yeah, I'm not sure I'm understanding why in this case, like that, like doing physical harm to someone is not considered an action. Like,
Oh, so that is considered an action, but what Adam was bringing up is that the Gemara in Yuma, which is the source of all these things, strongly implies that you're only over on this isser if it's in mammon, if it's in like property or money stuff. So stabbing the guy will certainly be usser, but it wouldn't be considered vengeance.
I think that in line with the moment.
yeah.
Even in the hard case, why wouldn't you know?
Why would Right. So that's because we're saying that the standard case of revenge is you ask to borrow my my scythe and I say no, and then the next day I ask to borrow your axe and you say no. So and since that's not an action and that's included in the isser, then we then categorically we say that this thing is a lav shein b'maaseh.
So even for other things that are actions, if it's in this category, so when would you ever get malchus? You would never get malchus.
For this,
No,
never.
no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. In order to get malchus, it has to be something that the way that you do the isser is through an action, like eating pork. You know, like there's no way to violate it.
You violate another infinite thing. Yeah.
Say again?
Violate another infinite while also violating the human one.
Right. Yeah.
In the Sefer Mitzvot, makes it sound like the only cases it brings down are verbal cases.
Right.
So it seems like that.
And he says extrapolate.
Yeah.
So yeah, right.
So maybe that's what we're supposed to extrapolate.
Yeah.
It's only
I mean,
verbal.
yeah. It could be, but in the Sefer HaMitzvos on nekimah on Shin Daled, you can remember that because it's the demon of revenge. Shinigmalehu kefalo hara o nitza'arenu kamo. Yeah, I guess you don't have to infer from there that it could be an action. Yeah, it's strange. Yeah, it does seem verbal, right? Oh, so that are you saying that that's the unity?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
right. That the unity of Perek Shvi is all verbal stuff.
Right. And so,
But yeah.
Lafshin b'maisa, like you were saying, but just from
Yes.
But,
yeah.
Also, what's it called? The
Lo sisna ezachika bilvava. Yeah, right.
Isn't that also? Oh no.
It's
No,
non-verbal
Right.
specifically, right? Because it's if you avoid talking to the person, that's when you're over, right? Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, that does fit in better though. The verbal deos that have to do with speech. Yeah,
so are we saying there is no punishment for nekimah?
there's punishment from God, just not from
Okay.
Beis Din. Yeah, Yeah.
Sure.
and there's punishment in Mishlei.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see what he says about it. So it's a very bad day. Ella roy la'adam. Here comes another stoic thing. Ella roy la'adam lios ma'avir al kol divrei ha'olam. Just ignore all worldly things. That's all God asks of you. Shakol etil hamavinim divrei hevel v'havai. Everything to those who understand is just matters of transience and hyperbole, right? What was that?
That sounds nice.
Yeah. The Einan Kedai Linkom Aleihim. So that's an interesting thing. And it's not worth taking revenge for. Right. So he's leaving open something which, again, if we have time, we'll go into. He is leaving open something that if there were something that is worth taking revenge over, then revenge could theoretically be good. And I think I'm bringing this up because a long time ago, when we first started Hilchos Deios, and we were talking about emulating God, did we talk about like Kel Nekamos Hashem, that God is a God of vengeance? Like, don't we emulate that? And like, are all of God's mitos things that we should emulate? So there is maybe. Yeah, maybe anger. Yeah. That makes more sense. Yeah. Right.
Is the unity of this like section of halachos that it's all about like how exactly to emulate God? I don't know if that's such a fair sound.
The section of like Hilchos Deios, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think that's I think.
I kind of thought that was just the first few.
Yeah, you're right. I think I also thought that because that was the focus there. But I think you're right. Oh, it wouldn't be great. No pressure. If we ended this off with an actual answer for why they're called Deos. Yeah, that we still never got. We're not going to open the can of worms. We're going to set the can of worms like with a can opener next to it, just on the counter there. Yeah. Okay. Right. So again, I was joking, but not joking before about like the Stoic thing of like especially when you have the Rambam in Los Kal Cheresh, the person is not, and especially if you have like the Tehillim we were doing, the person who wrongs you is not actually harming you, right? So I think that's what Hakol Eitzal Mavim Divrei Hevel V'Havai. I mean, all the stuff is temporary, and you can see in the what do you call it in Hilchos Mezuzah 6:13 where he talks about the only thing that lasts forever that's not Hevel is Yedias Hashem, and Havai I think is saying that you just exaggerate everything. Havai means exaggeration or hyperbole, meaning it's our imagination that blows all this out of proportion because of our ego. Yeah.
Right, but I guess there still could be theoretically, like putting aside yesterday, there could be a benefit, like a Mishlei benefit.
Yeah.
Of doing nekimah.
Right, and that's what I was alluding to when I said that if we have time, we'll see the place where you should take nekimah.
Right. No,
Yeah.
I'm saying even not for like Kiddush Hashem. Spoilers. But
That's not actually where I was going to go. Do you have another source? Oh, we'll see. Yeah.
What's I guess just like if like let's say like you giving your hoe to this guy
Right.
is now gonna make like people not lend you stuff.
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah, right. Practical reasons you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, but see, I feel like,
that's like not. It's not like you're blowing everything out of proportion.
Right.
It's like,
but is that revenge? Meaning the way you define revenge was in terms of the paying back the guy for the subjective harm he did to you.
right. So sometimes that might be necessary, like to like act in that.
Okay, meaning doing retaliatory action
Yeah.
might be necessary, but that's not nekama as a dea.
Mhm.
Nekama as a dea is really what he was talking about, the Sefer Mitzvos of the imagination and like paying the guy back.
Yeah.
I think that's a good distinction, though. I think Like let's say, like, I mean, it happens in war all the time. I mean, like proportional response, all that, like all that other stuff. That's practical, but that's not doing nekimah. That's like pragmatic, and it could align with nekimah, in which case it's bad because you're usually going to make mistakes, because then you're not responding to the actual, what is practically necessary to be done. You're responding to your own internal parts.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're saying that like there still could be, I mean, we haven't gotten to the like we're saying there still could be like a situation where you should do nekimah, but that's not the example that's gave. Like this
Right.
is a different situation.
Right.
And separate.
Oh, okay. So that would be the question then when we look at this exception. Is that actually doing nekimah, or is it doing like an action of nekimah?
And also, so is it? It's still usher in this case that we're talking about, right?
In this case, meaning,
Like retaliation.
yeah.
Like just retaliatory action would be.
Well, it's a good question, right? Because it halachically doesn't seem like we care about the motives.
Yeah.
Let's actually read the case.
Sure.
Yeah, which is slightly different than the one in the Sefer mitzvos. So ketzati nekimah. I don't know the word, by the way. Nekimah, nekama. I feel like people say nekama, but he says nekim. I don't know. Ketzati nekimah. Amar lo chavero. So if his friend said to him, hash'ileni kardumcha, lend me your axe. Amar lo eni mashilcha. And so friend B says, Shimon says to Ruvain, I'm not going to lend it to you. Lamachar sarach lishol mimena. The next day, Shimon needs to borrow from him. Amar lo hash'ileni kardumcha, and he says, lend me your axe. I guess he has an axe. He didn't have it at the time. Amrlo eni mashilcha kederech shelo hishaltani kesheshalti mimacha. I am not, and so he says, I'm not going to lend it to you the same way that you didn't lend it to me when I asked you. President okay, that's vengeance. Ella. So now we will do mishlek opposite. Keshiyavo lishol, when he comes to ask, yitain belev shalem, he should give with a full heart. Velo yigmul kasher gamalo, he should not. There's no verb, retribute, right? They should not pay back what he paid to him. It's hard to translate Gamal. Camel. Yes. Same thing for all other things like this. And that's what David said with his good deos. Im gamalti sholmi ra. I was going to look that up beforehand. I didn't quite know how to translate it. If he just look it up here. Hold on. I know this is gonna be bad. Yeah, I don't know. Shol ra. Those who pay back. I mean, I think it would have to do with being mishalim, but let's see, Zion.
Is it shol me or shol me?
Shol me, yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah. It's I feel like I've not heard that form before. So the way they say it in here on the archaic translation. If I have requited him that did evil unto me. So meaning he's saying I have not done that. Okay, that was the other thing. The im part was throwing me off. Yeah, right. So meaning I've not done evil to those who did evil to me. Yeah. So that's the case. So it does sound verbal.
Yeah.
If Amar lo, he said to him.
Right.
Such a strange formulation of an Isser nekimah. Like that's not how you would, if you were writing the Torah, then like you would think it's like prohibiting. First of all, you go into beyond like mammon, but like doing actions. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure this has been talked about because I'm coming a little late, but
We just started the topic today, so it hasn't been, yeah.
and avoiding can't be like an actual mindset, right?
Right.
Avoiding or whatever it might be, any non-action is not really an action.
Right. You could still be, I mean, you could still be over the Isser though. The Torah could structure it that way, right?
Right.
It's just you can't get malchus for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's also
like
funny.
a meaning avoid, like would you say avoiding it just as like as a separate like
Yeah.
is avoiding an action? If I avoid you, am I doing an action?
Yes.
Is that like a misa? Would you call that a misa?
No. Did I pass the test? Yeah. I mean, it's an action in the sense that you can, I mean, here's maybe where the distinction, like as a losase, this makes sense to formulate it like this, right? Or is that not making any difference? Am I just thinking that for, I don't know.
Are you saying that as a don't do it makes more sense?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't really
It doesn't matter. Yeah, right. Yeah, but I do think I don't think there's anything inherently problematic by saying that the Torah is saying don't withhold lending if the guy just because the guy withheld lending from you. Yeah.
It's also interesting just pointing out that he calls him he says the Deios of halachos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not the way David Melch is usually introduced. Usually it's his good songs,
Right.
or his righteousness. Yeah.
I mean, we are talking about this.
Yeah.
So he's just pointing out that.
Yeah, it's just still is weird. Like, not weird enough to like, spend time out in the question, but just like,
Right. Yeah, I guess he's just saying that like why he's bringing David as a raya.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's take a brief detour to the case where nekimah, before we go into netirah, we'll go to the case where nekimah is mutter. Or I didn't make copies of this because I just remembered it today. So we've got two of these. I don't know where all the other Mishneh Torahs are.
Like that.
You want? Is this me now? We have a mother here.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not that.
Oh, I'm just they're on there.
Oh, okay. All right, whatever people want to do. Hilchos Talmud Torah. Yeah. Are you winded? Good. Because you have superpowers now that you've flown like a superhero. Ah. Okay.
Sure, the Rambam like that.
Okay. So we are in Hilchos Talmud Torah, last chapter.
Yeah.
Is this one you were thinking of?
What? Maybe.
Okay, because you said in terms of Kiddush Hashem, and I don't think he mentions Kiddush Hashem here, but if there is one with Kiddush Hashem, then that'd be interesting. So look at Hilchos Talmud.
Yeah.
It resembles Kiddush Hashem, but
Yeah.
yeah, and he even uses some of the same phraseology. Okay, so Hilchos Talmud Torah, last parak, and it's in halacha 13 in the printed editions. Ooh, you finally got it. Yeah. Zion. So it's talking about chachamim who put other people in nidui or cherem, who put people in excommunication. Okay, and the paragraph begins with af al pi sheyesh reshus. I don't know what paragraph that is though. Yeah, see it?
It's the third in Yud Gimel.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so af al pi sheyesh reshus lechacham lenados lechvodo. Even though a chacham has permission to put someone in excommunication due to his honor, eno shevach latamid chachamim lahanhik atmo b'davar zeh. It's not a praiseworthy for a tamid chacham to accustom himself in this. Ella malim oznav midivrei amei haaretz. He should cover his ears to the words of the ignoramuses. Below yashis libo lahen, and not pay attention to them. K'inin shamar shlomo b'chachmaso. Not B'deos of it. Yeah, like Shlomo said in his wisdom, Gam l'chol hadvarim asher yidaberu al titin libecha. Also to all the things that they say about you, do not pay attention. Great piece of advice. V'chein haya derech chasidim. That is a Koheles. Yeah. V'chein haya derech chasidim harishonim. So too, such as the path of the early pious people. Shomin charpasam v'inam meshivin. I think he says this by Kiddush Hashem also. They hear their insults, but they don't respond. And not only that, they forgive the insulter and pardon him. The great chachamim would praise themselves about their beautiful actions, but only their own actions, saying that they never put someone in nidui or cherem. That is the path of Talmidei Chachamim that's proper to follow. Okay, but now he qualifies it. When are we talking about? When they degraded them or insulted them in private. But if someone degrades or insults a Talmid Chacham in public, it's usher for him to pardon his kavod. And if he did pardon it, nenash, he gets punished. Shezeh bizion Torah, because that is a degradation of Torah. And here's where he uses the phrase Ella nokim v'notir harbe kanachash. He should take revenge and bear a grudge exceedingly like a snake. Until the guy asks for mechila from him and he forgives him. Yeah.
So is that saying, in a case where you already heard it, you should do this? Meaning, like, is this saying like you should always be like trying not to hear these things, but like once you hear it in public, then you have to do this.
Oh, that's a good question. I would think that even if
Totally dismiss that in public, and you should be like not looking for it, but like always on kind of the lookout, I guess.
I would think that so if it's in private, then you should always just overlook it.
Right.
And if it's in public, it seems like even if you didn't hear about it, even if it was like an insult to Torah,
Right.
so then you should, if it's your Torah, then you should go after the guy. So this does not fit with what I was saying before, because I was differentiating between retaliatory actions and the mida, and I don't think he's saying you should have the mida of like of nekimah here. He's just saying that you should go after
You're saying you should do like retaliatory.
Well, he's saying nokim v'noter harbe kanachash, right? So what does the nokim mean exactly? Like not pop the guy's tires, right? I mean, Oh, nidui, right. I guess so. Yeah. Is excommunication or these yeah. What's the other word for excommunication? No. In English, the excommunication, or like when you're translating nidu and cherem. Exile. Okay. Yeah. That sounds too strong. That's like gullus. Ostracization. The ostrich thing. Yeah. Okay. So that's the exception. Okay. Now let's do the last couple halachos, unless there's anything more there. I mean, there's more there, but we haven't really done nidui as a topic. So like, I feel like there's subtleties there, but okay. Now the last one is on the last page of the packet. The thing, this is ches 1. Anyone who bears a grudge against a Jew over below sase, he violates below sase. You should not bear a grudge against the members of your people. Ketad, how so? Oh, now he names them. Reuven. Why didn't he name them before?
What did you say before?
He just said chavero, and I filled in the names. So weird. Okay, Reuven. Well, if we're extrapolating from here, then Davka people whose names are Reuven, Reuven she'amar l'Shimon sechor li ba'ezeh. See, now this is a new example.
Yeah, that is weird.
Than the one he gave in the same mitzvah. So weird. So Reuven says to Shimon, "Rent me this house. O hashileni shorzeh, or lend me this ox." V'lo ratza Shimon, and Shimon doesn't want to. Okay, which he's entitled to. He does not want to. Liyamim later. Okay, which he also didn't say.
Right. He said machar.
Machar, right? Yeah. I can't. I feel like we can't read stuff into this, but it's just weird that he must just be doing the lashon of the Gemara. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, why is Gemara doing that?
Gemara's not the Rambam.
Like a somewhat more specific case in terms of this, like the context what we just read.
I don't think so, because in the Sefer Mitzvahs he gave the exact same case.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, in regards to the same.
Yeah. I don't know. All right, Liamim.
Holding a grudge from one day to the next day might not be nekimah.
That might be
Or
true.
netirah.
Netirah, yeah, that might be, yeah, that could be, yeah. Liamim tzarach Shimon liReuven lishol mimeno o liskor. So the next day, Shimon needs to borrow or rent from Reuven, but Amar lo Reuven, and Reuven says, "Halach," and he says it with like this really smarmy look, right? Here you go. Harini mishjilcha ve'eni kamoscha. I'm lending to you. I'm not like you, okay? V'lo ashalim lecha kamasach, and I'm not paying you back for what you did to me. Ha'ose kazeh avar below sitor. Someone who does like this is in violation of not bearing a grudge. So that's the other weird thing is, it's funny how you're not over on it until the case comes up again.
Isn't that and the overall the other thing? I don't want to mess that up with that.
Over on that would be. You're right. That's really the bearing of grudge. That's true. I totally forgot. Right, harboring hatred. I mean, I should say. Okay, hold on. Harboring hatred. Yeah, I mean, so what Chaim's suggesting is that lo sisas achich really is what we think of as holding a grudge, because someone did something to you and you just hold in the hatred. And this is really more like expressing a grudge almost, right? You know, there is a halachic difference, which is, I don't think this has to be at the level of sina to be over. And sina is like the way we were reading with the Rabag in the Rambam, that it has to be like an actual degree of hatred, you know, not just like mild annoyance that the guy didn't like lend you the axe or whatever. Yeah. So it is so weird that these are all verbal, okay, right? Just like, you know, just not how you picture it. And then last halacha, Ella yimche hadavar milibo. He should erase the matter from his heart, v'lo yetrenu, and not hold it as a grudge. Shekol zman shu noter as hadavar v'zokro, because the entire, as long as you hold the matter v'zochro. How would you translate v'zochro?
Remember,
That's one way to translate it.
brings it up.
Brings it up is the other way, right? So to recall, that's the frustrating thing about the Hebrew, right? Is Zachor Esasher Salacha Amalek B'derech B'teisachim Mitzrayim is we really mean recall, or like Zechira Yom HaShabbos or Zechira Sitis Mitzrayim is all verbal recollection, you know. So I read this as he shouldn't bring it up. Yimchem Adavar Bilibo means he should raise it inside, but also he shouldn't bring it up. Okay. I somehow debated this point with Joey Lichter at one time a long time ago, and I forgot who said what. Yeah.
Wait, but isn't noter bringing it up? Like, isn't noter doing the action of like saying, I'm not going to do like you did to me?
Halachically it is, right? But
So that, yeah.
yeah.
Then what the only thing that's left is like we're actually remembering it. You don't do this action.
That would also be covered.
Okay, you could say that.
That would be
You should.
covered. Elim Tamar Libo would have already said that too.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
hard, right?
now he's starting over. He's saying Shekol's Manju noter.
Right. So you're saying so Zochro is the parallel of Yimcha Davar Milibo and Yitrenu and Noter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works. That works. Shema Yavo Linkom, because maybe you'll come to take revenge, right? That's the so this is so netirah is a getter against nekimah.
Weird.
Yeah, and Los Kalacheresh is a getter against nekimah also. Yeah. Lefikach hikpida Torah al netirah. That's why the Torah cares about netirah. Ad sheyimcha avon milibo klal v'lo yizkarenu. Till the point where you wipe out the avon from your heart entirely and don't remember it.
It's funny because that seems like the bad thing intrinsically to do netirah.
Yeah, but you could say it's a bad thing intrinsically, but this is why the Torah is makpid on it, right? The Torah, for example, is not makpid. There's lots of bad deos or bad actions, and the Torah does not try to nip all of them in the bud. It'll just say v'halachta b'drachav, and you go on your way, right?
Oh, so the reason
It singles it out as a separate losase.
right.
And I think it's also just because nekimah is very bad, like in terms of society wise. Like I this is my theory. I'm not getting this from the Rambam, but lots of deos are bad in terms of your own perfection. But nekimah can just be like, cycles of vengeance, like and real harm. Kamsa bar kamsa stuff. V'zohi hadeh hanachona she'efshar she'is kayim ba yishuv haaretz. Oh, there you go.
Nice.
Okay, there's corroboration. This is a proper dea that is possible through which it is possible to establish settling of the earth, meaning like a good societal order. Umasa'an umatanan shel bnei adam ze im zeh. And I don't think this just means business. I think it means like dealings between people, right? Yeah. So that's the end of Hilchos Deios.
Cool.
Yeah.
I guess our nekimah are also like dealing with nekimah and stuff.
Right.
Like,
that's an interesting one, right? Because that does, okay, I don't know if it's consensus, but it does seem to be that's one of the institutions where Goel Hadam was a thing, and like Torah is not going to succeed in getting rid of it. And so just like harnessing it and doing damage control.
It's sort of like slavery, but with honor.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I feel like honor kings really were way more prevalent than we really realized.
They still are all over.
Right.
India,
In Asia, right, yeah.
All over
The Chang family. Right. Yeah. Okay, so that's the end of that, and that's Brief Rahman Desayan. I definitely think that's true. So any reflections on a year of Rambam Bekius? What has made an impression? I'm not going to say the greatest impression in terms of the experience of going through. So essentially we went through 3 sections, all the Hakdamos, and also of Hilchos Torah and all of Hilchos Deios. I've got an answer, but I don't want to take it away from. I
think one thing that made a big impression on me
is
like what was feeling like I feel a lot more comfortable reading a text, especially the Mishneh Torah, and just like analyzing it and discussing it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And also just like sort of seeing like the I guess the order and categorization of halacha has like been really like it's like I don't know. I guess it just like really clarifies like where all these things fit in.
Yeah.
And like it's cool.
It is pretty cool. Yeah. I guess. Oh yeah. Go. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess this year, like of like doing Rambam Bekius, like I think in general, when we're like trying to learn something consistently, if you're like, if you fail at doing it consistently,
Yeah.
then you're not doing that.
Yeah.
And like with this, like there were times where I did it more consistently and less consistently, and I feel like it's shown me that like, yeah, like consistency is a good thing, but like if for whatever reason that's unattainable, like I've like come in and out of this year,
Yeah.
and like have still been able to gain so much by just like being like, okay, just because like
Right.
I haven't been there every day doesn't mean that like I'm not gonna know what's going on. Like I've been able to like just come back in and like understand what's going on,
Right.
and like still take away a lot.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good example of don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. You know,
Which I
yeah,
think is like true of like all of studying halacha
Right.
or just studying anything. Really.
Right.
It's like it doesn't matter where you're starting.
Yeah.
You're always like, even when you start at the beginning, you're kind of like jumping in.
Yeah, right.
So like.
Yeah. That's a good takeaway. That's a good takeaway. You got anything, Chaim? Okay, I'll say mine for now because it kind of unifies what you and Isaac were saying. Was for me, I feel like I got a better sense of what it is. I'm gonna try not to go on a rant here. To learn Torah Shabbal Peh as opposed to learning Talmud. Like the way that the Rambam conceives it is Mishneh Torah is Torah Shabbal Peh, and he even uses the term reading Torah Shabbal Peh. And the cheeky way to say this is I feel like I learned what Rambam Bekius means, but like I think the level at which we learned, and we made fun of this a lot. Right. Yeah. The level at which we went into depth in certain cases and then like did it at a more superficial level in other cases. I feel like that is a good paradigm of what Bekius learning should be in Mishneh Torah. And like it showed me how much we can get out of it. This is again kind of what like Isaac was saying. But then the other thing, and relates to what you were saying, is you could do Bekius in Gemara, and you get a lot of informational knowledge and a lot of knowledge of how halacha works. But you don't get the seeing the categories of halacha in an ordered way that you can now take this framework and see everything through those lenses. And that was, I think I mentioned that, I think it was Yehuda Rappaport, one of my contemporaries in yeshiva, who said, he spoke of Mishneh Torah eyes, of like, when you have the categories of the Mishneh Torah, the 14 books and then all the sections and the 1,000 chapters, if you get the chapters, which really we got a chance to do with these first two sections, and you walk around and you see everything through those categories, like it builds on itself and you start to have like this edifice in your mind of, I see everything through the systemic framework, and even if I'm learning like a Gemara or a Rashi or whatever, or even like philosophy, like it fits into one of the categories. And you can imagine you get like a little taste of the type of Oslo Evosh Babiti El Komas Rosecha that the Rambam advertises in the opening line of like being able to go through your life, like your Jewish life and your human life, and see how everything fits into the regimen of Torah, and it's amazing that we can get that just from the first two sections, like that's not touching. I forgot how many sections there are in like Hilchos sections in the Mishneh Torah, but like a lot, and like it's pretty cool, so. I think that's what I got. And I feel like it's funny because like I feel like if you would ask me at the beginning of the year, like, have you gotten a taste of that? I would have said yes. But something about the thoroughness and the daily, I know it's not daily, 4 times a week, like going into it and like returning to it has made it so much more of a part of the way I view the world than before. Yeah.
I think also I think you mentioned this, but like before this, like I didn't feel like I had like an approach to like learning Rambam Bekius.
Yeah.
And like even though like long ways to go, but like I feel like I have a taste of like an approach for like being able to open the store and like know where I should like like really try to break it down.
Yeah.
So I think like okay, I can kind of glaze over this.
Yeah.
Like, there's some like I have some of like that methodology which I just totally didn't have.
Yeah. It's good. Another thing also, I feel like the fact that we didn't skip stuff also made an impression, especially the minyan and mitzvos, and just seeing how much, and two experiences, minyan and mitzvos, and then the parak about health.
Yeah.
Like and what was that?
I missed that.
Oh yeah. I'm just speaking for myself. But the experience of like, this looks like it's going to be boring or irrelevant, and then you find gems in it, like that experience is something that if you were just, not doing a consistent thing in terms of like we're gonna do everything, then you just throw it away because it looks like it's not interesting, you know, and it's
we've
bad.
also missed out on-
Sorry, my service cut out for a second. Would you be able to just repeat what the two things were?
Repeat the two things I just said that I gained from, or which two things? I don't, it looks like you think you're talking, but I think you're on
Yeah,
mute.
yeah. You said there was two things that you gained from in terms of like not skipping.
Oh yeah, the
yeah.
Rishimos HaMitzvah, the minyan and mitzvos, and then the health stuff. Yeah. What were you saying, Avi?
I was gonna say that if we didn't do the health stuff, forget like being able to like gain things from the health stuff itself, also the bigger picture of like going through every single piece,
Right.
and then having this full picture lens of like Rambam's methodology,
Yeah.
how he categorized and structures everything.
Yeah.
We would be missing a part of that.
Right.
If we didn't do that.
Definitely. One other thing also is that I feel like, so that's the areas I've never done. Then the other thing is like all these areas that I've read certain halachos dozens of times and then just not seen stuff. And then we did it here and then seeing stuff. And like, that's a good, it's either a good writer or a Ruach HaKodesh or both, you know, like, yeah.
But yeah, I definitely have gotten that sense of you're constantly always changing how you do things.
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
these Areas.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool. Yeah.
Definitely about that way, Deus.
Yeah. Deos
The first
especially,
two-
that those first two prakim.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, that's the other thing also is like, it's interesting the phenomenon of sugyas in Mishneh Torah, because I felt like we went through sugyas, but it's a very different sugya feeling than going through a sugya in like
Yeah.
Gemara or practical halacha. Like, you know, and then the other thing also, which I just read earlier in the week, I think it was that Rambam the Sefer Mitzvos, where he says, I'm going to either answer every question or give you all the tools you need to answer every question. Even though I don't know if the Rambam succeeded in that, I feel like his level of success is much greater than I thought it was because of how we were able to bring up questions and cases, and then through just digging and digging and digging, find answers, you know?
Yeah, I also really appreciated seeing the halachos as the Rambam like categorize them and arrange them.
Yeah.
Because I feel like every time I've learned a part of the Mishneh Torah, it's always been as a like, you know, I'm learning like the sugya of revenge, and so it's in the middle of this parak, you know.
Right.
But like seeing it in the context that he put it in, it was just like it was really cool to be able to do that.
Yeah. Context is key there.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and I just as a last just methodology point, I do think, I know people like are big into like siyums and stuff, but I feel like which is fine and good, but I feel like the reflection on how the thing transformed your view is good to do explicitly if you ever can. So like if you finish something with a chavurah or whatever, like take a moment, like, well, we took like 8 minutes, just like reflect on it verbally, and I think you'll gain more out of it as a good thing. And you know, the other thing also is like I read it just because it was a text I wanted to read, but Brich Rahman de Sion, blesses the Merciful One who helped us or helps us, whatever, is definitely a good way to also end off going through an entire thing, like to remember that you had siyata d'shmaya, and especially the way the Rambam defines the type of help is he created everyone with the capacity to know to pursue chachma and tzedek, and that's his habal l'tayim masayno. So it's like that was really the drive here, is pursuing the chachma and the tzedek, you know.
And also he created the Torah that like
yes
gives you like that also helps you come to all these insights.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. Just Can you imagine just, I don't know, tackling Deos, forget metaphysics, but Deos without mitzvos and halachos. Like you're just like, yeah, just do ethics. Like just, you know, like just having a framework is just incredible.
Yeah.
Okay. It's true, but he did that with everything. He was he was an exception. Yeah. All righty. Thank you.
Thank you.